So being neurologically different has not always felt like a gift. My ADHD, my heightened anxiety response, my dyslexia, and the different way I process information due to trauma and a variety of other reasons has been difficult. And good old PTSD, it's always a delight. But I got there, and it hasn't been easy. And it's also not been easy in a world not made for difference. It's also not easy raising my children to celebrate their differences. Imagine a 5-year-old sitting in a class listening to stories about other kids playing with dogs and having fun and feeling totally disconnected from all of those around them. This was my life, isolated, scared, free-falling. Growing up, I always felt different. I also could not put my finger on the why. Getting along with other kids was difficult. Understanding the adults in my life was impossible. I was sensitive to their facial expressions, their body movements, and my entire environment. I wanted to lash out or run. Why? Was it my parents? Was it because it was my mom that was sick? Was it because I lived with my grandma? She was very special, by the way. You would have loved her. I mean, a lot of bad things did happen in my life. By the age of 3, I had seen domestic violence as a regular occurrence in my life. I had been surrounded by drugs, and I had been left alone at home by myself before the age of 3, if you can imagine that. Trauma. It does amazing things to the human brain. The amount of effort it takes to appear normal or neurologically typical can be exhausting, because the pathways that developed in my brain were there to limit my expression of self to keep me alive. That fight, flight, freeze response happening hundreds of times a day. You know, when you're walking across the street and the car almost hits you, except that almost every breath of your waking days. The amygdala, the emotion center of the brain, was overused in mine, reducing the gray matter in the rest of my brain. Doesn't that sound fun? So this survival strategy of panicking was very strong. And to stay alive, it was very effective. I mean, I'm here, aren't I? The hypersensitivities to others' responses it actually affects every cell of my body. And I lived this way for decades. When I began to raise my sister, when I was 19, I noticed that she was different like me. Our mom had passed away when she was just 1 year old. I wanted her to celebrate herself and see her differences as amazing, just like I saw her. But the truth is, I didn't see it myself. And as I began to notice my son's autism at age 2, it struck me again. How can I teach him to love and celebrate himself? And the truth is that I couldn't do it without believing it for myself first. And this is where becoming a researcher came in really handy. I looked up books, articles, websites, you name it, I had it. It was all about celebrating ourselves for the uniqueness that we might have. And slowly, I started to see that great things happen when we embrace what makes us us. And the journey was long and painful, and I'm still on it. The truth is that we can surround ourselves with those who believe that we are small because it feels comfortable and familiar. And peeling ourselves away from that can be very painful. It certainly is for me. The path I walked could have derailed and ended in tragedy, and it almost did a number of times. And yet, right now, life is so good. I consider myself an innovator, someone who can see and do things that others can't, because it's true. I'm a therapist, I'm a trainer, I'm a writer. I also began a charity to support youth just like I was. For youth who are complex, or because they look too shiny for service. We're so good at looking shiny, aren't we? Social media, I blame social media. Or maybe they've been turned away for being too complex. I have become a mental health and disability specialist. I create amazing programs that bring stabilization and hope to families who include children with disabilities. And because I dreamt of children seeing themselves in books or those in power as a way of reducing the shame or isolation associated in being different, there is now a book called All Kinds of Minds. I have it at the back. At Inspire, we are compassion, education, and inclusion, all things that I longed for as a child, and I still do long for them. For those who need, those who are falling between the cracks like I did, offering therapeutic intervention in home with wraparound care, stabilizing deregulation, connecting, caring, attuning to those who have felt misunderstood and alone, just like I did. So what does it mean to live as neurodiverse now? I'm so glad you asked. It means understanding myself as unique, some of which is very challenging, and some of which has a lot of gifts, maybe even superpowers? Yes, I think so. I can be a chameleon. I can fit the mold of what's needed for children in distress and connect to those who have difficulty connecting. Anybody who have kids that have a difficult time connecting, you know that that is a superpower. For those who have been in distress and isolation for years, I can see you, I can attune to you, and I can stabilize. I can think and feel differently. Being neurodiverse means to be different, literally, neurologically different, and to celebrate it. And because now I have yoga, I found my breath, I have found friends who get it. I have a really amazing board. If Christine Bruce is there and she asks, they're amazing. She's on my board, just in case you didn't know. Because I have friends who get it because they are also neurodiverse or they're allies. I spend my gifts fueling my passion by helping others, by making meaningful change in my immediate and my global community. I have found joy in the little things. This is true joy. In the melting of snow, especially today. In my friends' gratitude. In my children's smiles. Because my power comes from my experience, my disabilities, my differences, removing those who want to keep me small, and surrounding myself with those who want to see me thrive. That was part of how I learned to define myself and my identity in what I can do instead of what I can't. I have finally arrived, and now I continue to arrive. So no matter what kind of difference you have, celebrate it. Thank you.